Be the Chief, Chapter 4, Motivation. The good chief says, "Hoo-yah, shipmate BZ." The great chief says, "I'd deploy with you any day." The U.S. Navy is 100%, inarguably, undisputedly, the best Navy in the world. Depending on your metrics, is also the top combat force anywhere in history, period. When you consider the ability to dominate all 5 domains of warfare in the nuclear, conventional, and unconventional fronts. Sadly, some of you just rolled your eyes. This and exactly this is why chiefs need reminders about motivation. How could this man say the Navy is the best Navy in the world? We can't get somebody a DD-214 on time. I have to conduct sweepers. My ship is still in the yards. We're undermanned. I'm deploying again. I had to wait 2 hours to get my meds refilled at the pharmacy. We have the ugliest and least functional uniforms in the service, and this guy says we're the best. To these critics, none of whom would make my list of teammates I would deploy with, I offer the following. For one, yeah, you're right about the uniforms. 2, the U.S. Navy never lost a war, and we are less than 100 years removed from the last time our Navy led the largest invasion force in history and literally saved the world. And we did it on multiple fronts, in Europe, the Pacific, and Asia. That counts, and that matters in areas we, the chiefs, are chartered to protect, those being our history and heritage. These are very powerful lessons to draw from, and they are lessons other countries simply do not have. Part 2, and this is a clarification. We can argue all day about wars and conflicts being designed or defined as wins or losses from an American perspective. When I state the U.S. Navy never lost a war, I mean just that. Even in wars or conflicts where victories were ill-defined or the objectives were blurry, or the U.S. and allies did not come away with a clearly articulated win, none of those instances was because our Navy lost or put forth some sort of lackluster showing. There are no stories anywhere of the U.S. Navy getting smoked. Even the worst day ever, Pearl Harbor, ultimately became the catalyst for our winning the war in the Pacific. You can argue that World War II era examples are exceptions to the rule because our people were motivated to fight for freedom. However, the U.S. Navy has never been far removed from motivating factors. You talk to anybody who was stationed on a ship in the Arabian Gulf during the hours after 9/11 went down. Their motivation was through the roof. Not a decade before them, talk to the folks who carried out Desert Storm and Desert Shield. You'll see the same motivation. And in the late 80s, in that same body of water when the U.S. Navy Task Group completely crushed Iran's Navy in its own pond, motivation peaked. This is the advantage of being able to draw from your history and being able to roll with an all-volunteer force. Think about this. Every person you serve with most likely went to an office on their own volition and signed up. We all have different motivating factors for making that decision, but the fact remains a lot of other navies, including some of our up-and-coming opponents, are forced. They're conscripted into service. They're not volunteering. Now ask yourself, who would you rather serve with? Motivating your people has nothing to do with the number of times you offer up a hoo-yah or a pat on the back or a BZ to a shipmate. Actually, a lot of stuff comes off as fake or contrived. I personally have never been a hoo-yah guy. I mean, I'll occasionally interject, that's what I'm talking about, or yes, or whatever fits, but motivation comes from being familiar with each of your people's internal drivers for why they do what they do and letting them see yours. Have you ever listened to a sailor just rail on and on about an award they should have received, or the outcome of a Sailor of the Quarter board, or an eval ranking? It is the worst day ever for them. And the Navy sucks, and I'm dropping my papers, and this and that and the other thing. Hey, that's your opportunity, because that sailor has forgotten or moved on from their internal drivers that aided in their decision to take the oath of service. Think about this. When you signed up for the Navy, did you know what a NAM was? Did you really know what a Chief or Master Chief was? Did you know about the importance of being scored above your reporting senior's cumulative average? Probably not. So why then do these occurrences weigh so heavily on a sailor's attitude and morale on any given day? One thing I've noticed, and that has always helped me to get through to a troubled sailor, is to sit them down and get right to it when it comes to their reasons for signing up in the first place. When we do this, we uncover some powerful personal factors. And you will find that approaching them, that approximately 0 of them signed up to win all of the NAMs. The most common reasons I've seen ranged from the I want to defend my country post 9/11 enlistee to the more moving I want a better life for my family. It is so important you recognize that as a chief, you are in fact working for your people. Don't ever be the, I got 200 people working for me, chief, who is living in an illusion. People work for lots of different reasons. One of your sailors might work hard to support their family, or maybe even support their family who they don't even live with anymore. You might have another sailor working to finish a college degree, another trying to pay off their car early, or maybe purchase their first home. Another sailor might be working for pride of service, or love, or God and country. Another sailor might be a second or third generation sailor. Other sailors are working for power, money, or a certain job title or a distinction. Some folks work hard because they love their job and they're proud to serve in the Navy. Hey, that is authorized. For some, motivations change. Happened to me, in fact. I joined the Navy because I wanted to complete the final year of my 4-year degree. I also felt back then it was the honorable thing to do. I felt like physically and mentally I had a few good years left to offer my country. Even though my father did 20 years in the Army, I felt the Navy was the place for me. I was on a 7-month wait from the time I signed the papers until I went to boot camp. And I spent that period reading everything I could about the Navy, and I developed a massive respect and appreciation for the Navy's history. I found the stories to be incredible, and I took an immense amount of pride and obligation in making it through boot camp. I remain so proud to wear the colors of the incredible sailors who came before me. Now, today it comes from legacy. I try to make the Navy a better place every day because that is what I owe the legacy of the chief anchor. I often reflect and ask myself, what did you do to contribute to the legacy of the Navy chief today? Some days that question is tougher to answer than others. While I try to be great every day, there are days where stepping back to reset is the proper move. But even before my CPO initiation, I had the same mindset. You will hear a lot of chiefs talk about, you need to earn your anchor every day. That is good advice, and that works as a bumper sticker. But since day one, I've challenged myself to earn my place in the U.S. Navy every day. Again, I fully expect some of you to roll your eyes. But I ask you this. If the U.S. Navy is the best in the world at what it does, then what makes anyone think they would not have to earn their place in it? To use a sports example, would anyone expect to show up at spring training and walk onto the New York Yankees field and say, hey, I got shortstop, and good to go? No, you need to earn your spot. So again, why would we tolerate any of our people bringing us down, giving less than optimal effort? Welcome to the Navy, because we've always done it that way. Shut up and row. Where does all this come from? How many people do you know who love the phrase, embrace the suck, but they are completely miserable? Now, that phrase finally matured to what Admiral William McRaven called embrace the circus. But that doesn't mean you accept it and you allow your mind and attitude to be dominated by it. It means at any given moment, you might be confronted by some sort of circus. Act like you've seen it before. Handle it. Don't ever take it personally. Remember, good chiefs are quick to respond to a fire or circus, put out that fire, and carry on. But the great chiefs do their absolute best to ensure conditions aren't ideal for fires, and they spend the bulk of their time proactively leading and mentoring folks instead of reactively taking care of sailors. When you have time to be on the offensive, you get the opportunity to do one of the best things any chief can possibly do. Unlock a sailor. This is the absolute pinnacle of motivation. When you start unlocking sailors, you are dominating as a chief, and you are helping the Navy win on the biggest scale. Unlocking a sailor starts with the two things we as chiefs owe sailors every day. Number one is good order and discipline. Good order means sailors have good orders to carry out through the day, orders they understand, orders that make sense. Good order is meeting the standard and not accepting the alternative. When good order is in place, communication flows, trust builds, and along with it, your chances for mission success and a positive command climate. Discipline is doing what must be done when it has to be done, as well as it can be done, and doing it that way every time. It means you are instilling in your sailors the discipline to see the orders to completion, make good decisions, and prioritize appropriately. It is on the chief to influence the area between forced compliance and willing commitment, and thus setting the conditions for good order and discipline. Good order and discipline should never be confused with punishment, as it so often is. The second thing chiefs owe their people is opportunity. This could be a collateral duty, a chance to lead a working party, or simply any chance to step up and break out and feel extra useful. A good barometer for this is every quarter when you collect all your sailors' brag sheets to see who your Sailor of the Quarter nominee should be. If their pages are empty, you will know if you're providing enough opportunity, and likewise, whether their lack of performance is their fault or yours. We can talk about sailors deserving good order and discipline and opportunities, but it all starts with every sailor deserving a damn good chief. Doing these few simple things will help you toward unlocking sailors. Remember, we are entrusted with the nation's youth. We have a lot of sailors who have no idea what their life goals are or what their talents are. They are learning as much about themselves as they are about the Navy. Anytime you give them a shot at something where they stand to realize their potential, there is a chance you can unlock a person to be massively successful. I have seen people completely burst out of themselves at all pay grades, some very junior and some chiefs. There's nothing more gratifying than witnessing this or being thanked for enabling it. How do we actually go about this? Well, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen to what people are telling you. Very rarely will a sailor approach you and demand to run everything. The people who step up and demand to take ownership of the urinalysis program are even more scarce. But you will see hints on sailor CDB paperwork and in other forums as to who is actively seeking more opportunities, and you will also hear sailors say things like, "Oh, I didn't even know that existed," or, "Oh, I've never been picked for that." It is on you to match up these folks with opportunities and then coach them to success. Then, there are your sailors who are living on the island of misfit toys. They've arrived at the command broken, or they're fresh off an NJP, or USS Last Command treated them so badly, they're about to put in a skill bridge package before lunch. How do we even approach unlocking them? Well, for starters, show them a side of the Navy they have not seen. Nothing proves a person wrong faster than when they are confronted by something that directly blows up what they perceive to be normal. For example, my LPO once asked me to host a CDB for a junior sailor who they described to me as a leadership challenge. The LPO and his fellow first class told me, "We are very curious to see how you approach this, Chief." Hey, don't threaten me with a good time, you know. The sailor, a 12-year E5, starts the CDB by telling me, "I know you mean well, Chief, but I've only had shitty chiefs my whole time in, and I'm just saying you shouldn't waste your time on me. I don't want to make first class because I'm just not interested in the responsibility." Jesus, right? So the chief has a choice here. Are we going to confront the sailor and take offense to what he said, and you're going to go all high and right and put on a show in front of your first classes and be the JV chief who loses his shit on an E5? Going to be that egotistical person? Are you going to try to convince a 12-year E5 that everything he's seen over 12 years is wrong? You might as well go scream at your toilet seat, because that thing is going to give you better results than what you're going to get out of this sailor. So how do you fix it? Confront them with something they've never seen before. disproved their concept of the norm. In this case, I made sure he saw that every day I operated completely different than what he expected from a shitty chief. And likewise, my first classes also operated beyond reproach. We rocked his world. Now, what happened? Well, he didn't make first class, but that wasn't the goal. We don't define ourselves by who gets promoted. We define ourselves by building and developing people as leaders and contributors. He pulled his weight on a very arduous and challenging deployment. And when crisis found him, when we all knew it would, he came to only one person with it, and that was me. I was able to solve and diffuse the situation, get him the help he needed to take care of his family. That was, after all, his biggest motivator, time with the kid. Another great motivator? Let your sailors read your evals. This technique works like dynamite. I've had multiple LPOs frustrated they weren't on the list for chief. I gave them my first class evals. The reaction typically goes like this: I can do this. The mind is unlocked. The motivation is engaged. Sharing evals is not playing a game. It costs you nothing. Why wouldn't you do it? Do you think you have special words in your evals? I can tell you that you don't, because your evals were influenced by everyone who kept their best evals to pass along to you as well. Your evals may be the best tool you are currently not using. Like work-life balance, everyone is motivated differently. Everyone works for something. Don't hesitate to turn the screws on someone who you sense has lost their motivation. It's one of the most natural ways to show someone you care. A couple great books on motivation. Definitely Neptune's Inferno by Hornfischer and Inside the Danger Zone by Wise. Side note, recognition. Good chiefs take the time to reward their sailors' hard work, but great chiefs reward their sailors as soon as possible, do the heavy lifting on their own, and train their people along the way. Don't ever reward a sailor's hard work by telling them to submit themselves for an award. Move your ass. Personally write their award. And I do mean personally, as in it better come across to them just how much the efforts meant to you. Chiefs love to say they made it on the backs of their sailors. Okay, so the least anyone can do then is take a few minutes to thank them by writing a unique, heartfelt award. Giving all the awards for your first classes to write for themselves is not training them to do anything as a chief if they're just going to become a chief and tell their own first classes to do it. Makes no sense. If your CO can sign an award, challenge them to get it done quickly and set the table for them to do a surprise presentation to the crew. Take the time to perfect the writing and admin to make it impossible for anyone to say no or to push back. This shows that you care, and it spares your chain of command the pain of revision. Additionally, COs like to know when their people have done something above and beyond in support of their mission. Entire companies exist to help corporations recognize employees. Upward of 40% of employees leave jobs because they didn't feel valued. Not every sailor strives for a top-ranked evaluation or a Gucci award, but even informal recognition can go a long way toward their self-worth. Methods include public call-outs, coins, of-the-month incentives, and simple thank you notes. I've also seen looters do positive counseling chits and surprise presentations or special liberty at quarters. One thing I did as a CFL was draft a letter of appreciation for my command fitness team, so all the CO had to do was sign them once our cycle was in the books. That letter looks much better to a board than a simple designation letter or eval bullet. In another instance, I saw a CEO who was fond of writing letters to sailors' parents to tell them what a great job their sailor was doing. The good chief ensures their sailors are formally recognized for their work, but the great chief finds a way to thank someone for something every single day.